Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Marriage is just as important as any other industry or institution you're going to be a part of. And if you want to be successful, you have to have that plan and you have to lay it out, and you need to know what are your objectives so that it can be that compass to guide you in your actions, decisions, puts you on that same page. We're all making decisions, pushing towards that same outcome or end game.
Hey friend, I'm Julie Lyles Carr. You're listening to the AllMomDoes podcast, part of the Purposely Podcast Network. And you know that our mission over here is to come alongside you for the life you're living, the marriage that you're nurturing, the kids you're raising, the job that you're excelling at, and your spiritual walk. I am so excited today because I have a new friend on. Her name is Tondra Gregory. She and her husband have been doing all kinds of work through the years when it comes to marriage. And she's going to share with me today a lot of what they learned, a lot of what they're seeing, and things that you can apply right now to that relationship in your life. Tondra, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, we got to navigate a little bit of tech challenge and became fast friends as we
did.
were holding up Post-it notes to one another to try to figure out what to do. So I'm so impressed.
Struggle brings friendship when you overcome struggle together.
That's right. So we have done it. We are past the first mile marker. I love that. Well, Tondra, tell my listener where you live in the world, what you do, who you're married to, what your heartbeat is, kids, families, cats, dogs, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So my husband and I do chaplaincy for the Los Angeles Chargers. It's the NFL team here in California. One of the NFL teams here in California, not the only one. My husband's name is George Gregory, and we have been married for 30 years. We have 2 young adult children who live in Los Angeles as well, so I get to see them often. We've been doing marriage ministry. We started a marriage ministry called Journey for Life, in which we are helping to educate and equip couples on their journey to have successful relationships and marriages. And we've been doing that for 25 years. And we just wrote our first marriage book. So now we can add author to our bio. So we're also authors, and just found out that we are USA best-selling authors. We
Congratulations.
just hit the list, number 25.
That is fantastic. Well, congratulations to you.
Thank
That is
you.
quite an accomplishment. How did you and your husband discover that this lane of talking about marriage, because of your backgrounds in athletics and all kinds of different things? How was it that marriage became the thing that became your primary mission?
Yes, it was based out of our own pain and our own struggles. We got married because we were pregnant and we didn't have a game plan. We were in crisis management mode, and once the dust settled, and we were just like, oh my gosh, we're married and we are so different and we don't even know how to be married. And just that's
Yeah.
when you really find out, like, it's not just a wedding. It's one thing to get married, it's a whole nother thing to be married. And so that just happened to us so quickly because we didn't have a game plan and we just didn't know. And so we struggled for a few years. And we like to say we're pictures of God's grace, because by the grace of God, we figured out how to make our marriage work. And immediately we were saying, oh, we need to help other couples. We have to help other couples figure this out, because once we figured it out, we were just like, people just don't know this. It's not something that you just know how to do just because you're getting married. It's something you have to educate and learn and practice skills and figure out and get a plan to help make it work.
We so often, I think, resist the word plan, or we think about, okay, a 5-year plan. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, then we're going to buy the house, then we're going to put this here, and we're going to do that. And that's how we think of plan. I can remember one time when I was still in vocational ministry, a psychologist pastor here in town and I were teaching a class primarily of men, but it was on the subject of marriage. And so I was the token girl to kind of bring the feminine perspective to things. And it was interesting. We took questions from the group, and there were so many men who just said, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know what this marriage thing is. I've been married, some of them quite a significant amount of time and still felt like they were wandering around. And one of the things that I actively talked about with that group was, hey, you're a smart group of guys who know how to drop a business plan. Get out the yellow legal pad, like actually put pen to paper and think about it. And in your new book, this game plan, you're using that riff on a sports metaphor. But again, I love that because it makes it feel actionable and it gives permission for there to be both romance but also strategy involved. So talk to me about what a marriage game plan looks like. What does that mean to you? Because for a lot of people they're going to default to 5-year plan, 10-year plan, but that's not really what you're talking about per se, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we basically our book, which is called the Marriage Game Plan: Developing a Winning Strategy for Marital Success. So it's a play on our role with working with professional athletes. Um, but it is a marriage book, but it's undergirded and using sports themes and concepts to help make the marriage concepts more uh, visual, especially for men. Because women, we're gonna read any marriage book, but we were specifically trying to bring sports and marriage together and just help use those type of visuals and understandings for men and women who are sports people.
Right,
And
right.
so the marriage game plan is about a marriage game plan, not just a game plan. So it's to help couples get on the same page and start heading in the same direction. A lot of times we assume that we are on the same page, but if you do not have a plan, like my father-in-law used to say all the time, if you fail to plan, then your plan is to
Planning to
fail.
fail. Yeah.
And so a lot of times people in business and other careers and industries know that you can't be successful if you don't know where you're going and you don't have a plan of action to get there. So we feel like marriage is just as important as any other industry or institution you're going to be a part of. And if you want to be successful, you have to have that plan and you have to lay it out and need to know what are your objectives so that it can be that compass to guide you in your actions, decisions, puts you on that same page. We're all making decisions, pushing towards that same outcome or end game.
Right. I think we spend a lot of time, even still today, when it comes to premarital counseling or things like that, where we're really exploring more compatibility. And I think in some ways we think compatibility will solve everything and incompatibility will be the downfall. And yet, I got to tell you, Tondra, I've known some incredibly compatible people that the wheels came off.
Mhm.
And I wonder if it has to do with this place where there may not have been a plan in place that being somewhat similar or complementary to each other can only carry you so far. What do you see in the tenure that you've had in terms of guiding and coaching in marriages when it comes to this compatibility, incompatibility situation, and how we put a lot of weight on thinking that will be the thing that will
Yeah,
make us successful in marriage?
absolutely. Thank you for asking that question because even though we're compatible, we are uniquely designed by God to be different, unique. Uh, God values diversity. So, there's no two snowflakes that are the same, no two fingerprints are the same. So, we're all significant in our own right. We're all unique. And that's not a mistake. And you can find someone who's compatible. But the mystery of marriage is because then God says, hey, I uniquely designed you. Now the two of you become one.
One, yeah.
So oneness is a challenge because it's not just compatibility. Oneness is way deeper than just being compatible. Oneness is like how is usually found in the differences because you're not going to be, even though you're compatible, you're not going to be the same. So you have to figure out how to bring those two God designed unique individuals together to operate as a willed or machine. And that is going to be the differences. How do we figure out the way we're different, not forcing each other to be exactly identical to us, but figuring out how do we mutually complete one another? How do we strengthen each other's weak places? And so that's what we wanted to do in the game plan is get you a plan on helping you figure out those things that are slowly unraveling your marriage.
What do you say to the couple who has kind of come up for air after kids and toddlerhood and career building and all the things, and now feel like, well, Tondra, this sounds great, but you know what? I think we're playing completely different games. Like, I mean, he may be over here playing football and I'm over here playing basketball, and we aren't even in agreement on the philosophy of what game we're headed for. How
Mhm.
do you get back to a place where you can at least sit down and, hey, be honest about, yeah, we're on different fields, but begin to develop a place where you're back working together, you're back as a team, whatever that outcome is that you're going for?
Absolutely, because couples might, like I said, assume that they're on the same team, but until you sit down and figure out, oh, and you communicate about it. Oh, you're playing basketball. Oh, I'm over here playing football. And it's not about now we have to choose, but it's what can we create that's our way. It's okay to be love basketball. It's okay to love football. But now we've got to come up with a game plan that brings us together as a team so that we can have a game plan for our team and be headed in the same direction. And one of the things that's been resonating with a lot of people through our book is writing a vision statement. Okay, so what do we both want our end game to be, and getting on the same page and having a vision for our future, for our marriage future, not just career future, but marriage future. And this is key because a lot of time couples want to focus on the away game and be successful in career, raising kids. I mean, like in sports and all their activities, dance, whatever they're in. And it's not as much priority or focus on that home game. And so this is a way to sit down and say, no, let's not haphazardly do this thing. Let's sit down and strategize and come up with our vision statement so that we can then bring ourselves into alignment so that we can operate as a team.
You've uncovered something that's really interesting to me in your work as chaplaincy for professional athletics teams and those type of situations, that 70% of marriages in that professional athletic field have that risk that they're going to fail, that they're going to go sideways. There are other professions where we see similar stats happen. And I don't think that we always factor in that sometimes simply the career path that you or your spouse might be on actually puts you at greater risk for your
Mhm.
marriage not continuing forward the way that you might hope. I love this idea about being intentional about the home game, not just the away games. And it feels like a very apt metaphor for what we sometimes see in certain careers. As you've observed this, what do you think it is about the professional athletics field that lends itself to these higher divorce rates, and with some of the other ones that we see too? For example, with surgeons, with financial advisors, with attorneys, we see higher divorce rates. Why do you think that sometimes we see that?
Yeah, I feel like couples are under high levels of pressure, high demands. It's very competitive out here. There's a lot of expectations that are put on certain professionals out in the fields. And I do feel like, especially with professional athletes in the NFL that we work with, it's just also high profile. So that is a level of pressure, and you don't really get to fail in private or talk about your weaknesses so freely and get the help you need. So it's a lot of keeping things private, not letting people know what you're going through. It's that type of privacy and protection that you have to live in under the limelight in that way. So whereas the everyday couple can go ask for help, can make mistakes, can seek support, and it doesn't have to worry about getting all out for the whole world to see. Right. So I do think um, that's one of the pressures that they face is, where can I trust someone to really talk about my marriage? And um because marriage is a very intimate, private area. It's one of the most private relationships that we are a part of in our whole life. And so for them it's very just not having that safe place, that safe person to really say, here, we're struggling. Can you help us figure this out? Is one of the big issues I feel. And then as far as football, it's just, this is something that the couple agrees in the NFL, that football can be that top priority. And so a lot of times you don't want your husband not to have a successful game, or you don't want to be the cause of any stress that's added to his level of stress. So a lot of times you just keep it in, and it just piles up and piles up and piles up, and sometimes it's so convoluted you can't even figure out, where is the problem, right?
Right. How to
So I
untangle
think
that.
those
Yeah.
two issues compounded can just lead to it not working out.
You think that you are in the final round of getting all this parenting done. You've got kids who are in high school, you're starting to think about college, and you're thinking, this is it. I'm Julie Lyles Carr. I'm a podcaster and I'm a mom of 8. And here's what I want you to know about George Fox University. It's a different way of doing college. Why? Because yes, it's all about getting a fantastic degree to set your kid up for their future. They have 60 undergrad programs available at George Fox University. But that's not where the story ends. It's also about equipping them spiritually. If you get out of college with a degree, but you don't have a closer relationship with God, that obviously is going to deeply impact what your young adult life looks like. So for your kiddos, I want you to consider, what would it mean for your child to be able to go to George Fox University, where 93% of George Fox students say they now have a closer relationship with Jesus? George Fox University is located in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. They have 23 Division III athletic programs, and 100% of students at George Fox University receive financial aid. George Fox University is dedicated to their promise. They want every student to be known for who God created them to be. So listen, parents, yeah, you are getting into some of those final laps, but you definitely want to make these last laps count in a big way when it comes to the legacy of your parenting. So be sure and check out for your student, georgefox.edu. That's georgefox.edu. So Tondra, I want to ask you something that kind of inverts the question a little bit. We often encourage couples, get to counseling, get involved in your faith community, go to your church's marriage classes, et cetera, et cetera. And those can be great things. But I want to ask you this, where do you feel like, because you've had long experience in this, you were at Saddleback Church for a long time, helping with marriages, where do we get it wrong in our faith communities when it comes to speaking into marriages and trying to help couples untangle sometimes the challenges and conflict that they've gotten into?
Yeah, it's so important to have help for marriages. When I forget the statistic. My husband found a statistic about the number of churches or faith communities that it's a low percentage that have a marriage ministry that is a primary ministry of the church, where they've dedicated full-time staff, where they have a verbose ministry for couples, from pre-marriage to crisis and everything in between, enrichment. It's very few churches that have that as a forefront. So I definitely feel like church is making that a priority and a resource for couples to say, we want you to be successful in your marriage. A part of reflecting God's image to the world and to the community and to our families, marriage is a big part of that. George and I believe that marriage is one of God's missional tools, because God chose the family to be the vehicle in which he wanted to pass on his nature, his character from generation to generation. So there is definitely an attack on marriage to distort God's nature and character from generation to generation. So I do think it's a significant part of the gospel of reaching people and making sure that we all are reflecting God's image, not just as individual Christians, but as marriages and as families.
I love that you point that out, because as I reflect on it and having been involved I mean, my whole life in church world and having served on different church staffs and having volunteered and on and on. You're right. I mean, we will throw the occasional marriage conference, maybe once a year, maybe once every other year. We will have robust men's and women's ministries in which those ministries hopefully are resourced to help with some marriages. But to truly be focused on that, I really think that y'all are onto something, and you've got the data to back it up, that we aren't doing maybe as much as we could be doing. Our small group that my husband and I meet with, we are comprised of couples from a variety of different churches, but we're specific in our small group focus on encouraging one another's marriages and an onboarding content and information and wisdom about marriage. And wow, Tondra, I hadn't really put that together, but I do see exactly what you're talking about, that even though we talk a good game in our churches about how important marriage is, we aren't necessarily resourcing it to the level that we would hope. What are you seeing today that you would say is something that you've always found through the years in your own marriage and helping others with theirs that seems to be a constant, something that couples are struggling with, that they grapple with? And what's something that's a little bit new to the
Mhm.
party when it
Yeah.
comes to this newest generation of marriages that are making today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a tale as old as time, but conflict resolution
Yeah, yeah.
is
The
is
little black dress of the marriage party. Yep.
is how to resolve conflict and get on the same page, because just like we were talking about being on the same team and operating as a team, in conflict, we don't feel like we're on the same team. That is the one area that makes us feel um, divided and not on the same team. And it can just be very frustrating to find out how do you become more unified so that you can be effective in resolving conflict. And so I do think that is um, something that has to be taught and learned, and skill development, because we all come from different backgrounds, and conflict resolution is so different in how you grew up. Some families grew up and you don't talk about anything. We
Mhm.
walk around all the elephants in the house
Yeah.
and we act like we don't see them. And then some couples grew up in individuals grow up in household where it's like you got to kill a fly, what do you call it, kill a fly with a hammer.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Everything's an
they
opportunity for a knockdown drag out. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So it's kind of like helping couples. One of the things we want to do in the book is help couples figure out, like, understand how you understand conflict to be, if there are any beliefs and thoughts that need to be challenged when it comes to your beliefs and view, but then help them get a strategy, walk them through a strategy of, here's how we are going to resolve conflict, here's our game plan to make sure that we remain a team when it comes to conflict, resolving conflict.
Right.
Oh, and
And
then go ahead.
yeah, what do you see that's new? Like, what are some things that
Yes.
you're thinking, "Oh, okay, we need to help develop some tools for some things we're seeing pop up that are kind of fresh."
Absolutely. And you know this, and I know everybody that's listening knows that social media and the internet,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
has invited a whole new uh, demographic of, there have to be boundaries set surrounding um, online and the internet. Making sure you have boundaries. It can present you crossing trust boundaries, because you can reconnect with old people from your past, crushes, all these things, and it can make you feel safe when you're just, oh, I'm behind a computer, so you just feel like it's safe for me to chat with this person or say these things, because this is never going to happen. Because like we used to have crushes on movie stars, we can have crushes on movie stars because we're never going to meet them. And but the thing about social media, it does connect.
Right.
It can lead you to moving towards the next level of meeting in person and things like that. And I feel like having boundaries surrounding that, get a game plan about what each person feels comfortable with. And your spouse is the one that gets to decide what they feel comfortable with, because trust starts with us feeling safe in the relationship. And we can't be dismissive or minimize our spouse feeling safe in the relationship. Now, I'm not talking about codependency, because I can hear some people saying, but you know, what if they are insecure and I can't do anything? It's about setting out the boundaries and making sure that you all are mutually agreeable and get that game plan of how we want to navigate. How much time do we want to spend online when we come home in the evenings? Making sure that we're not checking out of reality, living in technology world. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? And
right.
we need to talk about all of this. Just don't be haphazard about this, because sometimes it seems innocent, just spending I couples usually resonates with them when I say, make having a time to cut off any any blue light by a
Right.
certain time, so that it doesn't replace you talking to your spouse and finding out how their day went. It's becoming very prevalent. We know to put parameters around our kids and teenagers and everything, but I think that as adults, I think we're not really talking about this and how this could eventually cause a division in our marriage.
I think we're seeing that play out statistically, and I wish I could remember off the top of my head, Tondra, the number that I saw, but the number of people who are falling into extracurricular relationship with a former boyfriend, former girlfriend due to social media.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised. I don't want to speak a guess on the stat because I can't remember what it was, but it was very significant that
Mhm.
tends now to be the way that if somebody's going to have a misstep when it comes to fidelity in their marriage, it's one of the predominant ways in which people
Mhm.
step into something in which they didn't intend to, but
Yeah.
they do. And it is through the avenue of reconnecting through social media. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. I
Yeah.
think something that I see too, we had Dr. Morgan Cutlip on a while back. I'll have Rebecca link that episode as well, where she talked about division of labor. And in an era in which women today are doing so many things, and yet we still statistically are seeing that they're doing 85% of the mental load, the heavy lift at the home, all that kind of stuff, in addition to trying to, run the career and all the different things. Do you
Mhm.
see that playing out in ways that creates a fresh challenge in some of the marriages you see today?
I do think it plays out in, if you don't have a game plan and you're
Right,
making assumptions about what's happening, right? And it's like you're falling into these rhythms instead of setting up the plan. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
then we get frustrated at the expectations that start to be put on each other just because we falling into this. So I feel like definitely talking about that and breaking up each season of life, you need to be flexible and adjust as needed. So it's not like I can only do this role, I can only do this. I think just having these moments where you reconnect and say, okay, we need to adjust our game plan regarding these. This worked fine before menopause. I mean, that's
Yeah,
where I'm at right now.
girl.
Before perimenopause and menopause, this
Uh-huh.
was no problem. But
Yeah.
now, I need some help, or before kids, I didn't mind doing this, or before I went back to work, you know what I'm saying? It's just making sure you keep the conversation and flexibility to say, hey, do we need to adjust our strategy or game plan for what the season is demanding of us right now?
I love that you bring up that yes, there's a game plan, there's a strategy, but it is one that is evolving. It's a what we call in the writer world, it's a living document. That we are continuing to add, edit. Does this still work? I really appreciate that because I do think sometimes we develop patterns. They work very well for a while. Then we see conflict rise. We don't understand why. Hey, we had the game plan. What happened? And
Yeah.
yet life has brought in some new challenges, some new opportunities, some different things that are going to require a different game plan. And just like on the sporting field, depending on who you're needing to play against, whatever those challenges are that are headed your way, it's going to require some different plays. So I love that you make that analogy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Coach Lynn says it's called situational football.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Whatever the
exactly.
situation is, we're going to adjust the play
Yeah.
based off what's needed. So I'm glad you brought that analogy in.
I love that. And I think too, part of what you have put together with your husband is so smart because sometimes there are a lot of guys out there who are more than happy to pick up a marriage book that references first love or romance or connection. But I do think, and this was my experience in speaking and other groups that I was in front of, sometimes there are a group of guys that it's hard sometimes for them to get those kinds of metaphors or be able to communicate more fully within those kind of terms. And so when you put it into a gameplay kind of language, when you put it into a business plan kind of language,
Mhm.
it can really change and open things up. Now, I may have a listener out there who's like, yeah, but what if this takes the romance out of it? It already feels kind of unromantic to have to come up with a game plan. And what if he starts referring to our marriage as all about like zone defense and who's going to be, so how do you address that where you're also wanting to meet the needs of the partner who says, I need this to still feel romantic. I still need this to feel like it has some level of mystique and romance to it.
Oh, absolutely. The thing is, it's a marriage book, right? And so the elements and components of marriage is not going to change as far as what's needed in the marriage. It is just an analogy that can turn the light bulb on about intimacy, about communicating, about being vulnerable. Like they can understand it in these sports terms, but they don't know that those are the same things needed in your marriage. And so I feel like it's about turning their light bulb on when it comes. So it's not, I, my husband and I both were very involved in this. And I said, I don't want to make it too football-y because women, I don't want them to be lost in in the if they don't understand all these little rules and regulations that teams that are, in sports, then you're gonna not be inviting to the woman as she's going through the book with her husband. She might feel a little lost. So it's definitely a marriage book. All the romance is in there. It's just talking about is setting the need of helping them understand why this helps you win your home game and why it's necessary. And then they can say, oh, okay, because yeah, if a team isn't communicating, then when they're trying to win the game, if everybody's doing their own thing, then I can see why communication is important. Because how can you win if you're not communicating,
Right,
with
right.
each other? And yes, I mean, I hope that answers your question as far
Absolutely.
as like the women out here. I think I don't want them to think that this is a sports book. It's
Right.
just using a different approach to illuminate marital concepts that can turn the light bulb on,
I
to
love that.
understand from a different point of view.
Tondra, I can't wait to introduce your book to our marriage small group because we are
Yes.
always looking for more tools, new ways of looking at things. We know that within our group, all of the marriages at this point are 25 years plus. My husband and I are the senior ones in the group at almost 36 years. We still need all the help we can get and all the new ways of looking at things and fresh perspective. So I really appreciate you bringing this kind of metaphor to the field, just to, continue the pun here. But again, where can the listener go to find the book, find out more about what you and your husband do for ministry, all that stuff?
Yes, so you can pick up the book anywhere that you get your books from. And Amazon is a big place where a lot of people are getting books. So also for our marriage ministry, you can reach us at journeyforlifenow.org is our website, and then my social Instagram is at Tondra Gregory, or our social media for our ministry is at Journey for Life.
Yeah. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, hey, I so appreciate your time today and your patience with our tech issues and unpacking for us a fresh new way of looking at our marriages, coming up with a way where we can get back on being on the same team and making sure that we are headed for success in our relationships. Thanks so much for all that you and your husband do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Absolutely. All right, listener, you know what to do. Show notes. It has all the links that Tondra's talked about, all the ways that you can connect with she and her husband and find the book, all the good stuff. And a big thanks to Rebecca because she puts that together for us every week. Hey, grab this link and send it to 3, 4, 5 people who you know would love to have a fresh perspective on how to consider their marriages, to think about putting a game plan together for their relationship. That's one of the biggest thank yous you can give us when you take the time to send a link, just like you would a funny meme. When you take take the time in that love language to send a link to a friend and help share this content with them. Be sure and check out AllMomDoes.com. AllMomDoes on the socials. It's a great community for women in the same seasons and questions and all the things that you're going through. You're going to find your people there. And I love to hear from you too. Julie Lyles Carr, all the places. I primarily hang out on Instagram, so come see me there. And I will see you next time on the AllMomDoes podcast.